Add to the Bone recruiting analyst, Andrew Bone from BamaInsider.com, part of the Rivals.com network. He is the senior recruiting analyst. He joins us every Wednesday for the Bama Football Recruiting Report. Good morning, Bone.
Morning, Gary. How are you?
Doing well. Before we get to the big junior day, let's start with some negative news, or at least I assume it's negative news. Anytime the word decommitment is used, it's not a positive if it relates to your school. Well, Trell McCutcheon, we've talked about him here on the program, outstanding cornerback from LBJ High School in Austin, Texas, had been committed to the Crimson Tide for some time. That's no longer the case. He decommitted. It appears that Oklahoma is now the school to beat, although there are plenty of other suitors. First, why the decommitment? And secondly, is Alabama still in play here at all?
Yeah, I think they're still in play. Obviously he took an unofficial visit to Oklahoma this past weekend, and had a great trip. And I don't think he's necessarily on the verge of committing to Oklahoma. I think it was just more. I think it's more one of those situations where, he is taking visits, he is enjoying the process, and I don't think he wants that stress on him in terms of, taking visits while, being at commitment and, kind of opening up his recruitment a little bit and, just kind of taking a step back and enjoying the process. So I think Alabama will continue to recruit him, but at the same time, I think they'll continue to evaluate him because, if Alabama fans remember, he tore his ACL during his junior season, missed pretty much his entire junior season with a torn ACL. So I'm sure Alabama wants to continue to monitor that situation, see how he recovers from that injury. And I don't think Alabama's completely out of it yet with him. I think we'll probably see him back in Tuscaloosa, probably this summer sometime. But, it's always tough to get those kids back on board, who decommit. Sometimes, Alabama doesn't pursue them any longer. Sometimes they do. As we've seen in the past, Xavier McKinney, he was a, kid who decommitted from Alabama, recommitted. Trey Sanders, Evan Neal, those are some guys who were early commitments for Alabama who decommitted, reopened their recruitment, and eventually found their way back into Alabama's recruiting class.
Bone, I certainly don't want to freak out, and I don't want the fans to freak out. But we're so used to seeing Alabama at the top of the recruiting rankings, even early in the process. And now with McCutcheon's decommitment, there are only two commitments in this 2021 class. Drake May, the quarterback from Charlotte, North Carolina, outstanding prospect, and Deontay Lawson, the outside pass rusher from Mobile Christian. So at least for now, when you look at the recruiting rankings from the different services, Alabama's nowhere to be found. Should we be concerned?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned. Not yet. I doubt Alabama's concerned at all. I think this is a situation where, we're about a month away, a month out from the end of the 2020 recruiting cycle. So, there's still a lot of evaluations going on. Alabama's having junior day this weekend. They're going to have a lot of kids in town. They're going to have a lot of kids in town throughout the next few months. So I certainly expect things to really amp up over the course of between now and the start of summer. Once summer hits and a lot of kids are coming on the campus throughout the summer, then we'll start to see the numbers start to grow. But I'm not too concerned just yet. A lot of these kids are taking trying to take their time, taking official visits, and I certainly believe that I think Alabama would be just fine. But of course, you got to kind of wait to see where Alabama's at. Come, let's see where they're at come May, come June, when a lot of these kids start, making decisions or taking official visits and trying to get on board, and we'll see kind of where some of these other classes are in terms of their numbers as well.
Andrew Bone with us for the Bama Football Recruiting Report. He's the senior recruiting analyst for BamaInsider.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Last week at this time, we discussed the departure of Scott Cochran, a longtime strength and conditioning coach at UA, to Georgia's special teams coach, and talked about potential impact on recruiting. Now, as we talk this morning, David Ballou and Dr. Matt Ray have officially joined the Alabama program. That was announced yesterday. Going to bring a very analytical, scientific approach to strength and conditioning and wellness and diet and all of these things. And I know it's very early in the process, but this new type of approach that Alabama's going to take? Not that analytics haven't been used in the past, but not to this level. Any possibility this impacts recruiting in a positive way?
I think so. I think with these guys coming in, having a chance to sit down with, and talk to a lot of these recruits that are coming on campus, whether it's for junior day or throughout the next couple months when kids are coming in town, during their spring break. We'll see a lot of different kids on campus over the course of the next 2 months. Different days of the week, and they're going to have an opportunity to spend some time with these guys, learn a little bit about them. Obviously, a lot of people know about Scott Cochran, very high-profile strength and conditioning coach, spends a lot of time with these guys when they're on campus. Not just once they get there, but just about every single kid I talk to over the course of the last 13 years, they've always mentioned Scott Cochran as a guy that they spend time with when they come on campus, whether it's an official visit or an unofficial visit, or junior day or a spring game. They spend a lot of time with Coach Cochran and learn a lot about the way he likes to do things. And I think that they're going to spend just as much time with these new coaches once they get on campus to learn about them and see exactly what what the future holds at Alabama. With their new program, which apparently going to be very exciting and very state of the art.
All right, let's get to the junior day because these are huge, and one is coming up this weekend. And thankfully, because I'll be honest with you, Bone, this is a sidebar question. I do think weather impacts recruiting. Now, hear me out. I just think for a kid, the perception of a campus, of a program, of a town, are much more positive when the weather is nice than when it's like it is this morning. And the good news is the weather this weekend is supposed to be okay. Now, I know that sounds silly and you may disagree, but these are big weekends. And first, am I just totally out there in left field? I mean, you've been doing this a long time. Can weather be a factor? I mean, I hear about it on these northern campuses. Sometimes these kids go north for a recruiting weekend from the south, and they come back and say, I'm never going to that place again. It was freezing.
I'm going to name drop real quick, but I was talking to David Palmer a couple weeks ago, and he told me, he said, he wasn't really sure what he was going to do, but he ended up taking a visit to, obviously Alabama was the top school for him, but he ended up going with one of his teammates up to Pittsburgh for an official visit during his senior year, and obviously that was back in I think it was 1990, and he goes up there and he says, first thing he sees is snow on the ground, and he said as soon as he saw the snow on the ground that they were automatically out of the running for him. Of course, he ends up getting drafted by the Minnesota Vikings later on, but I definitely think that weather plays a factor. Whether it's a kid from the south going up north, or a guy from up north going down south, or a kid from California coming over to the southeast for a visit. I mean, you talk to so many different kids from Alabama or the Northeast who end up going out to California who love the weather out there. If it was a little bit closer to home, maybe they would go there, but. I definitely think it plays a factor, and I think that sometimes you get kids on. It's something that you can't control, but I think the weather definitely plays a big factor, and it looks like Alabama will have some good weather this weekend for this junior day.
It does, which is outstanding. All right, let's get to the junior day. Give us some insight on some of the guys that are expected in, and how big is this weekend for Alabama's recruiting efforts going forward?
So junior day is a little different these days than it used to be. Back in, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, junior days would, you would have 100 kids on campus. Now it's a little bit smaller just because I think one of the biggest reasons junior days are smaller, well, one, you have a lot of different junior days going on throughout the country, but you also have the ability to take official visits earlier now. Back, a couple of years ago, you could only take official visits in September of your senior season and through until signing day. But now you can take official visits beginning in April. So a lot of kids are starting to schedule official visits in April and May and June and July. So they're, kind of waiting to take those visits A lot of them kind of wait and take visits during their spring break at their high school. So you kind of see kids come in throughout the entire month, not just for, one specific junior day on a Saturday, whereas, they may be having, basketball or baseball or some sort of event that they're participating in, track and field, whereas they may not be able to get away. But there are going to be some guys on campus this weekend, some big-name guys. Mario Williams, top 20 overall player, top 100 wide receiver from Plant City High School in Florida, one of Alabama's top wide receiver targets in this class. And obviously, wide receiver, very important position for Alabama in 2021 recruiting cycle. I think they'll probably try to sign at least 4 wide receivers this year, and he's one of their top overall guys. 2 big safeties from the state of Louisiana that will be in town are defensive backs. Sage Ryan is a Rivals 100 corner of Lafayette, Louisiana, and also Kane Williams out of Marrero, Louisiana, Rivals 100 safety. Now, those are 2 big guys that are coming in. Another guy to really watch out for is Berneria Dilworth. He's an outside linebacker from North Carolina. He's only, he's about 6'2", about 195 pounds, but I think you put a little bit of weight on him, he's going to be outstanding. Had over 200 tackles during his junior season. I think he had 202 tackles. He is an outstanding football player. Definitely somebody that Alabama's very high on. And they'll bring in. Those are kind of the main guys, top guys that are going to be coming in. I think there's going to be some other guys that kind of float in there. But we're going to see a lot of top players throughout the month of March coming into town. Next weekend, Mason Smith, the number 1 defensive tackle in the country, is going to be on campus. And, we're going to see guys like that, like I said, throughout the month of March, throughout the month of April, especially coming in for spring practices. A lot of top players going to be in Tuscaloosa this spring.
All right, Bone, as we wrap this up, and I think Alabama's been on the cutting edge. Everybody has a coaching clinic, but once Saban got to Alabama, it got ratcheted up. And the 2020 Clinic of Champions lineup has been announced. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a great opportunity for high school coaches and junior college coaches, first of all. But I want to get to the recruiting hook in a minute. But you got NFL and College Football Hall of Famer Jimmy Johnson headlining, Carolina Panthers head coach Matt Rule, Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy, Virginia coach Bronco Mendenhall, Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell, Panthers offensive coordinator Joe Brady, yes, the same Joe Brady from LSU, Texans special teams coordinator Brad Seeley, Panthers quarterback coach Jake Peets, and Dr. Kevin Elko, who is, of course, consultant to Alabama and a top-notch motivational speaker. Clearly, there are going to be a ton of coaches here, high school and junior college, and they get to learn, and they get to, there'll be a breakaway session with Freddie Roach, chalk talk with all of the coaches at Alabama. But from a recruiting standpoint, too, this is also big, isn't it? Getting all these high school coaches on campus, building those relationships, and, helping them, but at the same time, it can pay dividends in recruiting, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely helps. And Alabama's also going to have some recruits on campus that weekend. I know they're going to have Tommy Brockermeyer, 5-star offensive tackle, and his brother James Brockermeyer, 4-star offensive guard, on campus that weekend. So I think, being around a lot of those guys, it certainly can't hurt. But, yeah, I mean, having all these high school coaches from, not just the state of Alabama and Southeast, but all across the country, coming on the campus and, learning from these guys, spending time with them and, kind of taking some stuff back from, even some guys that, may not have been to Alabama before, taking it back and telling them about, telling their kids about what Alabama's all about, and maybe getting, their kids on campus here in the future.
Outstanding stuff, as always, from Andrew Bone. Bone, go ahead and provide the listeners with information on both social media and BamaInsider.com, all the different areas and places where they can get your information.
Hey, you can follow us at BamaInsider.com, which is part of the Rivals.com network. Sign up today for a 30-day free trial. Check us out. You can follow me on my Twitter handle at Andrew J. Bone, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is free, and that's just Bama. Just search Bama Insider on YouTube, and you'll find our YouTube channel.
Thank you, Bone.
Thanks, Gary.